So the three of us, the team building scienceOS, share actually 4 core values which drive us in our decision making. One really important aspect to us is collaboration. We believe that science requires collaboration. We value each person's input and adhere to that we can only move forward together. Another aspect is simplicity. So we want to simplify things and make them clearer because science itself is already complex or sufficiently complex. We do not need to make things more complicated. We also value leanness. By that we mean we want to implement new things into our software quickly so that you can benefit from them the fastest way possible, and then also continuously improve what we've provided so far. And then we also believe in that we want to have a big vision, we want to make big steps and constantly innovate to drive progress. Essentially, we want to create a world where scientists can swiftly tackle global challenges because we got a sufficient amount of global challenges. Now to the meat. How can scienceOS actually help scientists? And there's a range of fairly common problems. So as a PhD student, you may, for example, lack a comprehensive baseline about the relevant literature in your field. And what can scienceOS then do? It can create citation networks to find foundational papers. As a postdoc, you may be collaborating with a new lab and need to quickly gain an overview about their field. And in this case, scienceOS can help you ask research questions and then follow up to dive into detail. As a teaching scientist, you may want your students to benefit from AI, but use it responsibly. And here, scienceOS really helps you by making sure that all answers are grounded in published research. Or even more creatively, you may be a scientist on the job hunt, and you may be in a situation where you are applying for a position in a lab and want to understand the research of the PI better. In this case, you can, for example, visualize an author's works as a diagram to easily comprehend what this person is all about. And I would now like to continue by diving into, in total, 4 different examples, how you can use scienceOS, and also talk a bit about how scienceOS works from a more technological perspective. And the really baseline aspect of scienceOS is that it, to some degree, provides access to the knowledge of mankind on a very fast base. What you see over here is the user interface of scienceOS. It is very ChatGPT-like, so to say. You've got this big middle part where you can see your conversation ongoing. On the left side, you've got a history sidebar with all your previous answers and questions. And the core difference between a tool like ChatGPT and scienceOS is that the answers that scienceOS provides contain all little small citation markers. So as you can see in the answer over here, there's like a little 1 over there, little 2 over there, little 4. We've changed the format in recent weeks slightly. Now it states the year and the name of the first author. But anyways, if you click on such a citation marker, what happens is that a pop-up appears that provides you with a link to the respective published research that this information that the tool communicated to you is based on. So in comparison to a non-scientifically built AI chatbot, the idea over here is that you have full source transparency and can check where the information is coming from. You can see the number of citations of this publication. If the paper does have a open access full text PDF, you find a link to the PDF. You see everything that you would want to see as a scientist: the abstract, publication year, the journal, the authors. But now, as it is a chat-like interface, you can then, of course, continue by asking follow-up questions to dive into detail. And because it has some um, short-term memory, so to say, every follow-up question will consider the context of the prior question. So for example, in this case, I first asked what prospect theory is, which is a theory from behavioral economics. And then when I asked the follow-up question, I didn't have to state again that I'm still interested in prospect theory. I just had to ask, is the phenomenon influenced by gender perception? And it then provides also, again, answers with references. Now, the best thing from my perspective is that scienceOS is fast. It accelerates literature research, which provides you with the opportunity to do the best scientific literature research that you can do. And that is that you can perform critical literature research. In an ideal world, we would always look for counter arguments to the arguments that we found in one source. But that is, with conventional literature research tools, extremely time intensive. Now with scienceOS, as answers can be provided within a few seconds in comparison to the past, that is different. And I want to show you an example for how you can leverage scienceOS to perform critical literature research. Again, you of course start very simple by just asking a question in the assistant chat interface. This example, I'm just asking, what is the rubber hand illusion? This again is a phenomenon from the fields of psychology. And what you may or may not be aware of is that the rubber hand illusion has in recent research come a bit under scrutiny. There is new data that points towards that there are some confounding factors. But if you just ask what the rubber hand illusion is, it will provide you a pretty solid definition of what the phenomenon is about, and the sources that it uses to answer the question what the rubber hand illusion is will be the well-established sources, because you're asking for a high you are asking a high level question, you're not very detailed, it's just provide me definition of what this is. So it searches for things with a high number of citations to make sure that this reflects accurately what many people are still thinking. Now, if you then follow up with something like, does recent research disagree? To criticize the answer that it provides, it will take a look at the papers from the last 3 to 4 years, for example, and try to identify those research papers which are not in line with the previous statement. And if you do that actually to the question of what the rubber hand illusion is, it will provide you with with exactly such papers which discuss that it may not be or that the phenomenon may be confounded by additional factors. And the nice thing is that scienceOS can not only provide text output in the shape of text paragraphs, but as you can see, you can also ask for a table by just saying create a table or generate a table or draw me a table that contains, for example, over here, comparison between those previous and recent research, and then it neatly organizes the information from the two last messages, such as the first message with the more previous perception of the rubber hand illusion, and then the second message of the more recent perception of the rubber hand illusion phenomenon, and compares them under regarding different aspects. And as said, in an ideal world, you would always do this for literature research, and you would have always done this for literature research. But doing this manually with conventional literature research tools can easily take one working day. Now with scienceOS, you can do it in something like 3 to 5 minutes. Now, in this next example, I think it is a very great use case to look at to show how to work around this limited search capacity of the assistant. So let's take a look at creating diagrams with scienceOS. So if you want to build a highly complex diagram, then you should take into consideration that the required information to build the diagram is spread across more than 8 papers. But the assistant will only retrieve 8 sources per search. So the creation of a highly sophisticated diagram should start simple, with a very plain question where you can be reasonably sure that the required information to build this diagram is can be contained within a set of 8 papers. In this example, I just asked the tool to create a diagram that shows the conversion of fatty acids into diglycerides via GPAT, AGPAT, and lipins. So that's just a enzymatic pathway that is happening over here. And it then created this diagram. It also explained it a bit and provides, again, of course, the source where this information is coming from. Now, if you then want to start building the diagram or bring in more complexity, you basically just tell the agent to begin adding aspects to the diagram. So for example, over here, I just tell the tool to also add G3P to the diagram and begin building a more complex version of it. This makes sure that the assistant can now, in its second search, focus on a set of 8 papers that or that contain information that that is, so to say, adding the second part to the diagram. And then I just continue and say also add the respective enzymes that convert diglycerides into phosphatidylethanolamines. So this is all about lipid biology. But it's essentially, again, the same game. You just ask for a new set of publications with relevant information and begin to add it to the diagram. So this is how you build very comprehensive diagrams and work around these limitations of 8 papers. Now, everything that we talked about as of now is info or are tools that you can use within the assistant, or as it states over here, chat with papers. The assistant is just one of the 2 tools that you do have access to in scienceOS, because there's actually another tool in scienceOS that's called the search. Over here in the screenshots, it's still called find papers. We changed names recently. And the search, in comparison to the assistant, is actually completely for free and comes with its own superpower, basically. So the search can help you find those foundational papers, which is one of the very early problems that I mentioned, that if you're a new PhD, you may face the obstacle that you lack this baseline of the papers that you should be aware about. So how does the search help you to find foundational papers? Similarly as to the assistant, you can of course also ask a question in the search and will provide you with an answer, including in-text citations, as you would generally expect. The major difference between the assistant and the chat is, and the search is that you can only ask one question. So you cannot ask follow-up questions in the search, and this reduces the complexity of the whole setup tremendously, which is why we can use AI models and combinations of AI models, which make the search far, far more affordable for us. And this is why we can provide it for free. And the second thing that makes the search as of now different from the assistant is that after you've asked a question and you see the answer, and then below that the list of sources, there's a tab that says network. And if you click on this tab, it will take the sources that it used to answer your question and draw a map how they are related to each other, so how do they reference each other. And it will also take a look at further research papers, not just the 8 that are used to generate the answer. It will take a look which papers do these 8 papers commonly reference. And it will then highlight those papers which are, so to say, in the past of the ones that answered your question in blue, that are then the foundational papers. And it will highlight those which were published after the ones that originally answered your question in red. Those are the subsequent papers. In this example, over here, we're talking about brand personality. Brand personality is a concept from marketing sciences. And when you just ask the question, or the original question that I asked in the search was how brand personality can be applied in the tech industry, and I then took a look at different case studies from the tech industry and how brand personality can be applied over there, and whether the model needs to be adapted and so on. And this is all a great answer, but the 8 papers that answered this question did not contain the foundational paper by Jennifer L. Aker from 1997, which just introduces the dimension of brand personality. Why? Well, because this very foundational paper, which has been cited nearly 7,000 times by today, is of course not a good source to answer the question how the brand personality framework can be applied in the tech industry. But it is a source, nonetheless, that you should maybe be aware of. If you don't know it yet, you can consider it a foundational paper that shaped the field, and the network helps you to find exactly this paper, for example, and then further.